Now let's have a look at a couple of assertions that you can write. Probably in the past you have used a lot this to equal 100. For example, one value, you expect that value 100 to equal value 100. And of course, this will equal to true. And that's very important. Always remember, make sure that your tests fail. So you always want to make sure that your tests fail if something changes. And in this case, expected 100 to deeply equal 101. And I will get big later to this deeply equal thing, what exactly it means. Additionally, you will have the possibility of entering a custom error message here. So equal to equal accepts a second parameter. And you can say here must equal 101. And when this fails, you can add here in your reports or in your assertions an additional comment why this failed. Now things can get very interesting, especially when you're working with objects and arrays. Let me explain why. For example, when you're working with equal, then let's imagine we have two objects. We'll have object A, let's say with a property name. And we'll have object A with property name John. And we'll duplicate this and say, get here object B with the same exact property. And basically, let's check if A equals B. We're not going to need the second block of assertion. And the test passes. Now, as soon as I enter an additional property, the objects won't be the same anymore. So in this case, it will check property by property. Is name John, is object A equal to object B? In this case, it's not. Now, let me quickly remove this property here. And let me introduce you another assertion possibility. And this one, instead of EQL, is using equal. And this can cause some confusion, and I wanted to clear this right from the beginning. Now, we have this second assertion. Let's see, this is the first assertion, just to separate them a bit. So assertion error 2. So this is a second assertion that is failing. And why is this failing? Well, it's basically checking if the object is the exact same object. And A is an object and B is another object, and they don't have the same reference because they are initialized in two separate variables. So this is why they are not equal with one another. For example, if I were to put in A equals A, it will be the exact same object. Now, my advice generally would be to stay away from this equal, because generally we'll not need to check if the object is the exact same object. But most of the time you want to check if properties have the same values. And this is why we're gonna stick to equal. But it's good to know what what the other equal does, the longer version. And in case you encounter it in the documentation in your test, you should be aware of it. And again, the point, make sure always that your tests fail and you're not just asserting things. Now, as said here, John equals J. The two objects equal. Let's change here name. John and Jane, two different objects. And of course, the objects are different. And let's try to make this assertion to revert it. So every time we want to revert an assertion, we can just put a not. So we expect that A to not equal B. Notice here the not keyword. And in this way, then I have my test. So in this way, I'll have the exact opposite of these assertions. Now, you need to make sure you need to apply not from scenario to scenario. It really depends on you. You can also make assertions on booleans. For example, expect true to be true. Of course, you can put this in a variable, but it doesn't matter what you put inside the assert. In this case, I put true, and the same can be false, and the test will fail. Or we can expect null to be null. We can expect undefined to be undefined. Or, for example, if I have an empty array, we can expect the array to be empty. And this is definitely better than getting the array size and saying length to equal 0. Now, this is a possibility. You can do it that way, but this is more technical. The other way around, it's more easy to read, more easy to understand. Now, once we have an array, you can do stuff like, let's put some elements in the array, 1, 2, 3. And we can say to include 2. And this, of course, includes 2, but probably will not include 4. And again, the assertion will fail. Now, if you have a specific value, for example, let's say 2 here, and we have allowed multiple values to be allowed, we can say something like expect 2 to be 1 of, and here we can give a list of numbers. Let's see, 1 through 3. So this assertion will be true when 2 is 1 of 1 or 2 or 3. And in this case, it's valid. Let's remove 2 from the list. And the assertion will fail. Now, not only that, but in case you have a string, right here a string. Okay, we have this string John Doe, and let's write a regular expression. So we do that to match. And let's imagine that we want this string to check if it starts with John. So this assertion will be true when the string starts with John. Okay. Wrong character. If I write here Jane, then Jane doesn't match this pattern that I've written. What I've shown you in this lecture is one of the many features of the Chai assertion library. In the next lectures, we'll go to more detail and more advanced scenarios. But in the meanwhile, I will highly recommend you that you visit this documentation and have a look of different examples that you will see there. Remember that all the examples that you see here don't include the pm.expect that you have to use in Postman. So everything you see here, you will have to add a pm.expect, and then the assertion will work. Make sure you play around with the assertion library and complete the quiz right after this lecture.